Welcome to another episode of the 100% podcast with me, your host, Harry Purdy. Today, I'm talking about a new project and I am on my own. However, this is about something that is really, really exciting, but also for me, incredibly nerve-wracking because when I did my first ever event, at the same time as when my video editor was down and recording the event, we decided to do a little bit of an interview with my parents and make a bit of a mini documentary on the journey of me going from 0 to 100%, but with my parents' opinion as well. And it's something that's been sat on the back burner for a long time, purely due to the fact of, if I'm going to be really real, I have been very much wondering what the opinion of other people will be, and I guess worried about what the opinion of other people would be. And if I was to really dive into what my message is, actually, that is something that I would be advising. If I was to give myself some advice, does it really matter what the opinion of others means to you, if what it means to you is way more important? And am I going against my own message by not releasing this documentary? Absolutely, I am, right? So that is why I'm releasing this podcast today, as a little bit of self-accountability and to kind of remind you that even though I've been doing this a long time and even though I do stick myself out there a fair bit, there are some doubts still around some of the projects that you do, about how much people want to hear your voice, about all of those other little things that involve kind of criticism and self-judgment and self-analysis. And actually, there's been a couple things that have kind of brought this even more to the attention this week, is that I listened to Chris Williamson's 999th or 998th episode of his podcast, and he was still talking that even after whatever it is, like 3 million downloads and 1,000 episodes now of his podcast, he still does get caught up in worrying about what other people think, which I think goes to show that it doesn't matter how far down the circle of creativity you are, growth you are, that this innate feeling that we have as humans will always be there. So it's not abnormal that I'm feeling this. But also in the same breath, I've handled my second ever YouTube troll this week, and I actually dealt with it pretty well. And I've had a really good coach in that front. Not that I've been coached on dealing with trolls specifically, but Paul Mort is the best person that I've ever seen deal with trolls. And when he talks about his own suicidal thoughts and stuff, he gets some real shit ones, like things that are quite deep and dark and horrible, and people go out and say that, but actually you just got to meet that with apathy and sometimes call it out as well. So really, why did I make this documentary, and why am I talking about it? I wanted to make it because sometimes when you're on set, i.e. the podcast, or when you have a script to follow with a reel, you can get caught up in that you're creating content for someone, for an ideal person that's going to listen to your content and be inspired, take action, and that you maybe create a little bit of a relationship with through that content. But with this documentary, there's no real control over what my mum and dad were going to say with the questions that I asked them. And I genuinely did want to find out what impact I had on them. And it reminded me how far along this journey that I had come, you know? So, and as well as that, when you're doing solo episodes like I am today, and when I'm recording videos, and a lot of them are of me talking about things like confidence, weight loss, about creating your own version of 100% and all of those kind of things, and genuinely, as important as I think they are, having somebody else talk about your journey for you, especially when they mean a lot to you, it can have a bit of a profound impact. And we can talk a little bit more about that along the way, and the impact of me to them in a way that you never really thought you could have had as well. Interviewing them was really weird. I've interviewed a lot of people. I've podcasted with a lot of people and spoke to people about some interesting stuff. But when you're interviewing somebody about essentially you and your journey, it's quite an interesting take. It was really humbling to hear the way that my dad would speak about me. And I mean, obviously, if you're a son who's lived with a dad for a long period of time, and I lived with my dad until I was 5 years ago. What would I have been? 29. Obviously, that relationship can be like two males in the same space, can be quite full of friction, and obviously we had our fair few silly arguments and stuff. But to hear the impact that it's had on him and the things that he remembers, and the fact that he literally said he doesn't think, which you'll see in the documentary, he doesn't think there's anything that I can't do now, is a really nice place for me to be in. And then on the flip side as well, maybe the negative impact that you have when you're not the person that you are today, and you were in a place maybe a little bit emotional, maybe a little bit volatile without really realizing it. The impact of that I may have had on my mum, in a sense of I didn't really realize sometimes what I was saying, and that was a reality check as well. So it was bizarre, and it was incredible to see the impact that I've had on both of those people, my parents, in a positive and a negative way. And it was just really cool to reminisce on some memories and things like that. But what the overriding thing that I think, if I was to summarize putting both of their opinions together about me now, and I mean, I don't really care for too many people's opinions about me, but if ever I was to listen to somebody's opinion about me and take it seriously, it would be both from my parents. But the overriding feeling that I got from them now was that over the changes that I've had over the last 9 years, they have more confidence in me, which is huge. And I'm not saying that there was no confidence in me at all as a human, but I think, as Paul Mort said in my video that he did for my event, I was a ticking time bomb. I was emotional. I'd react at silly things. And now I don't think I am that. And I do think that I'm more reliable. And I do think that I follow through with things that I say I will do. And with that, if I am reliable to myself, then and I evidence that by following through with the goals and stuff that I've set out to achieve, then of course that's going to give not just my parents but other people confidence in me. And that's probably as well why people do business with me as well now, because they see that I'm actually somebody that follows through with my words. And on a deeper front, I don't think I'd want to be somebody that would be unreliable now. If I want to do something that I said I would do, right? And I think that is a place that we should all want to be at. We don't want to, because when you let somebody else down, you let yourself down. And when you don't stick to promises to yourself as well, you damage that relationship with self-esteem and confidence. But we've spoken about that on the podcast before, and I don't want to go on a tangent. So I want to make this a short and sharp podcast episode this week. It was also incredible to review some of the milestones that both of those humans have experienced with me. Even though my parents were separated, they both made my first ever road race, which I talk about in my keynote. Going under that finishing line with 1 hour, 6 minutes, 52 seconds above my head was my first ever 10K, and they were there for that milestone, which was like the proper at the start of my journey when it was mainly just about weight loss. And then the other things that was spoken fondly of was, of course, the Ultramarathon, the first one, something that I genuinely didn't think that I could do, but did do. And then getting a sub 50-minute 10K as well, which, like, my mum was at the Ultra and my dad was at the 10-kilometer PB. You kind of think, shit, you are evidencing this stuff. But genuinely, it's I don't want to use the word genuine. It is a genuine piece of background information about me. It is quite raw, it is quite deep. It is me asking questions to my parents about the journey that I've been on, about when I was at my lowest mental health. We speak about when I was in my mum's house on the phone to the GP about suicidal thoughts. We talk about how my dad wasn't quite aware of how sad I was about the situation that I had got myself in with the way that I was thinking and all of those kind of things. And there's some real positive things in this, and then some real reminders about the situation and the place that I'd come from. So without further ado, I don't really want to talk too much about it. I'm just putting it on record that I am going to release it. I want you to watch it. If you are interested in me and you have followed my stuff for a while, it's very different. It's very raw, it's very real, it's very behind the scenes. So give big love to this, and I know maybe that there's some possibility that I'll get some trolls for it as well, which is funny at the same breath as also it is scary. And yeah, give it some love, give it a follow. If you're not following me on YouTube, if you're not subscribed to me on YouTube, make sure you go over and drop that subscribe, or even just like one of the videos that comes from this documentary, because it's a big step from me in the right direction of releasing more about me, right, and being more authentic. And although I'd say I'm quite authentic anyway, and I don't mind saying it as it is, this is something that is taking me out of my comfort zone, which shows to me that I should do that, as that's my message, right? Magic things come from just stepping into a direction that you may have never been in before, right? So that's that from me on this episode. So without further ado, this is a podcast episode / plug, a couple little lessons in here, me calling myself out on a little bit of internal bullshit, and also a message for you to go and check out the 0 to 100 documentary. It's on YouTube this Friday. I'll see you here with a new episode very, very soon. Big guest inbound. Speak to you later.